On climate policy, there is hope. In the US, a fight back has begun. You all know how big business these days is as woke as the bureaucracy. It's as woke as the ABC, sometimes as woke as the Greens, especially on climate change. They're often forced into this stuff by shareholder activism, especially when it's promoted by the union-controlled super funds who wield enormous influence in this country. When it comes to net zero and renewable energy, much of this is driven by the ESG movement, environmental, social and governance movement, the modern version of the triple bottom line, where companies must demonstrate their moral virtue in order to keep the shareholder activists at bay and, importantly, prevent online campaigns against their operations. There is now a whole industry around the world advising companies on how to deal with all this.
ESG relates to a broad set of environmental, social, and corporate governance considerations for companies. And investors are keenly focused on how companies manage ESG considerations.
Yeah, well, in the US, the new Republican-controlled House of Representatives is flexing its muscle against the way ESG is being weaponised. First up, it's targeted gigantic asset management firms over their ESG goals.
Republicans are calling the big three asset managers the new emperors because of the influence they wield over big corporations. In a new report, GOP staff at the Senate Banking Committee argue that BlackRock, State Street and Vanguard aren't actually passive investors because they're trying to shape companies' climate or social policies.
So the Republicans are calling for more disclosure and accountability, but through another House committee, they are threatening to use antitrust laws, or what we would call anti-monopoly powers, to tackle the ESG issue. Woke corporations are collectively adopting and imposing progressive policy goals that American consumers do not want or do not need, says a letter from senior Republicans. An individual company's use of corporate resources for progressive aims might violate fiduciary duties or other laws, harming its viability and alienating consumers. And they go on to say, but when companies agree to work together to punish disfavoured views or industries, or to otherwise advance environmental, social and governance goals, this coordinated behaviour may violate the antitrust laws and harm American consumers. So this is some fight back against the ESG agenda, but don't expect immediate results.
But the reason why this is really important is because it's a Republican attempt to start turning some of their rhetoric into actual reality. What can Congress really do to push back on some of these ESG proposals? And so this is how you do it. You put out an idea, you vet it amongst your caucus, you galvanize some public debate, and you see what sticks, so that if and when Republicans do end up controlling maybe both chambers of Congress as well as the White House, they have a suite of policy proposals ready to go. So I expect that this is just the beginning of this effort, and you're going to hear a lot more to come.
That we will. And make no mistake, if this pushback against ESG works in the US, it'll spread. It'll spread to Europe, the UK and here. Bring it on, I say.